Aloha, my name is Johanna, and I am not a medical professional, nor is this mask N95 grade. However, the pandemic is making everyone aware of hand washing and protecting others from coughs and sneezes, along with essential steps, practices such as social and physical distancing, wearing a fabric mask, and self-quarantine or isolation when appropriate can slow down the infection in your community. Times are overwhelming, but we can each do our part to make a difference to flatten the curve during this crisis. Now on to the tutorial. Hey guys, my name is Johanna, and this will be the third mask and final one that I plan to do for my channel, and of all of the masks that I have made to date, and I'll put the other two in the description box below. This one I find to be not only the easiest, but it is my favorite by way of wearing it. I actually had to run errands yesterday and wore this style out because I do have a nose guard. I didn't have the problem with my glasses fogging up, and it protected my face. It was big enough to cover both my nose all the way under my chin, so it worked perfectly. And at the end of the video, I'll show you how these look on me. But if you're like me, or if you're like so many people that you want to make fabric masks, I'm hoping that this tutorial will be very user-friendly because I don't have a sewing machine, and even though I have access to a printer, I've thought of a way that you can make the pattern for this, which is really simple and can actually be sized up or down very easily. So let's just start with a quick overview of the mask that I'll be showing you. Now these two look similar in that they are the fitted mask style, but this is the type that I prefer that has no liner because I do have a lining that's inside, and I will talk about that when I do my sewing portion. But if you wanted to have something that was more medical grade, I believe in order to be medical grade, not N95 standard, but just able to, if your local medical facility is willing, it has to have two different sides so they can tell the inside from the outside. It has to have the ability to have a filter inside, and it should have the nose guard. And I believe that's at least the minimum standard of masks if you are making to donate to your medical professionals. And so I will show you the one that comes with the pocket. It looks more complicated than it actually is. And then I'll show you the style that I've been making for myself, because the way that I plan on using this is just making a bunch of these for myself, for my family, my friends. And every time I use it, then I will put it away to be washed and sanitized. And so really it's just a one-time use for me, so that I don't have to worry about changing the inner filter or making a pocket for an inner filter. I just feel more comfortable doing it that way. But again, I will show you how to do both methods, and they're really simple. But let's start with the pattern first. All right, so what you're going to want to start with is just a regular standard size copy paper in the US, so 8.5 by 11, and you're going to want to fold it in half. And this is a way that you can make a template without one. And you don't have to, but I think it's just easier just to cut your paper in half. And so we're going to be using one size, and the size that this will make fits my face, which I would say would be like a large face. But if you wanted to scale it up or scale it down, I will show you how you can do that. So you're going to want to fold it in half the long way. So fold it in half that way, and then you also want to fold it in half the short way, because these will give us some guides on how to make our mask. And then the top left-hand corner, I want you to fold it origami style so that you make a triangle and then it hits that center fold. Okay, and let me actually draw some lines so you can see what we've made. Okay. So these are the fold lines of the paper. Now you don't have to draw that, but I think it might just be easier for you guys to see. And then we're going to take that top left-hand corner and have that point meet to the center line so that you've got that right there. Okay, now open that up because really you just want this point right here. And let me get a different pen so you guys can see this. The first thing you're going to want to do is just sort of make a line that connects there. You don't need a ruler, you don't need any fancy tools. Just connect to the center from the point where the fold is. And that was really the only purpose of this right here. And then you're going to make a line this way. And this will give you a start to the mask, but we do want it to have it a little more fitted on the nose. And when I was looking, it looked like it wasn't a straight up and down like this, but actually it was curved. And so again, you're just going to eyeball it, but you want to be on that same line. And we're going to go here and we're going to just kind of curve it that way so that the curve is gradual and it kind of ends around that line there. And then you're going to want to draw it so that those meet up to the center point there. So that'll be the bridge part of our nose. And then again, because we want this to curve more than this here, we're just going to follow that line and then just kind of go downwards. The space from here to here is not important, and the space from here to here is not important. Again, you just want it to have it a little bit more fitted so it curves over the natural roundness of your face. And so the actual top part of this mask will be this right here. So that's going to be the top part of the template of our mask. And then again, because the mask also curves down here so that it can fit nicely under your chin, you're going to want to just start maybe about an inch away. Again, it doesn't actually matter. And then just curve it out like that. This stays straight, the bottom stays straight. So it's really just this sort of half a canoe action that you're making. And then you would cut this out. To make your template. Now this is the one that I have been using, and I've made probably a good dozen with this, and this is just the original piece of paper that I cut out, and you can see the shape and scope of it is very similar. So even when you're freehanding, so long as you use those guides, then I think you can get a fairly reasonable template for your mask. And again, because this fits my face, I would say this is a large size, but when we are cutting, I will show you how you can size it up or down. The Olsen mask looks very similar to this, and I think the Olsen mask is what a lot of people are making for their medical professionals and volunteers and whatnot, and that needs a lot of moving parts. This is the only piece of paper and template that you're going to need to make this mask, either with a filter or without. So what you're going to want to do is grab your piece of fabric. Now the space is really small, so I apologize for that, but basically you want to cut 4 pieces of the same material, because again, we do want the inside and the outside to be different. So what you want is it to be folded up on each other so that the wrong sides are in, and then the same is for the layer underneath. To me, this just makes this go faster. And you would pin this down. You mean, honestly, you don't need to, but I'm just going to put the one just so it doesn't move. And then whatever writing utensil you have, you would just draw out the template. Okay, and once you have a little bit more of a manageable piece, then you would just cut this out. Oh, I almost made a mistake. So for me, this is the size that I want my mask, so I'm actually going to cut about 1/4 to 1/2 inch around it. so that that can be the part that I use to sew. Because even though you don't need a sewing machine for this, the way that I put it together is I hand sew it together. And so that seam allowance will give us something to sew together so that this ends up being hopefully a very close approximation of the size of the mask. Okay, so those are the 4 pieces. And again, that is for the mask with the filter. And then for the inside actual filter part, you'd want to cut another piece. And again, we only would need 2 pieces of a different fabric. Now, if they coordinate, awesome, but if they don't even worry about it. Now, for the inside filter piece, what you want to do is fold this about 1 inch. Again, we're just doing an approximation, and then you would do the 2 pieces, so again, them folded on each other, and you would want to draw around that and then also cut it. So once you're done, go ahead and bring me back. Alrighty, so for the mask that has the filter pocket, you're going to want 2 pieces of a coordinating or just a contrasting fabric for the inside filter pocket, and then you're going to want 4 pieces for the outside pocket. Now, in order to make the outside, and this is the side facing the public, you want to match your right sides together. So you would turn it inside out so that the side that you want facing the public is touching. And you want to do that for both of these pieces. And because we cut it out all at one time, these are going to match up very nicely. And then you're going to want to take this one and put it right on top of the second piece. And what you're going to want to do is stitch along the top here, taking into account that 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then for this one, you're going to want to do the same, where you make the right sides touch each other. And then you sew in. Now, if you use a pen that's dark like I did, then you can use this. Although, to be perfectly honest, if I can see this on the other side, it's not even going to bother me. This is really to protect me. This isn't a fashion statement. Otherwise, just hand stitch across, and you can either choose to do a back stitch or a running stitch, and I talk about those in the other video. And then let me show you what this looks like when they're all stitched up. Okay, so now that you have these 2 pieces sewn, again, we've sewn these 4 pieces together, and then we've sewn this together. This is what you have, and the reason for sewing those 4 pieces together in the fashion that we did is that when you flip it out, you have pretty sides facing both the public. You also have a nice side facing inside, which is going to be the inside of your pocket. Plus, it does give you 2 layers of protection just right here. So you're going to want to choose what the public facing side is, because depending on your fabric, there might be just slight variations. So I want this facing the public. Now for this piece right here, we do want to finish it off because this is where your filter will be tucked in. So you're going to want to fold that, again, about 1/4 inch, and then fold it again, just so you have a nice finished seam. And pin that in place. And then for the other side, you want to do the same, and you're going to fold into this middle section here so that by the time you're done, you've got a nice finished edge for the outside. And so again, fold in about 1/4 inch, and then fold again, and pin that. And then what I would do is a running stitch along that side and then a running stitch along that side. And of course you can use more pins, but just for brevity's sake, I'm just trying to make this go as quickly as possible. So once you've sewn those two sides, then I'll show you the next step. All right, now that we've got the sides finished, this is the inside. This is what's going to be facing your mouth. This is the pretty side. And so we want the part that's facing the public and the part that's facing your mouth to be touching. So insides together. And you're going to match up the seams at the top and pin that together. And then you're going to match up all three of those pieces, because again, you've got the two for the front cover as well as your filter pocket. And you'll do that on this side as well. And in the bottom, you're going to want to match up the seam to each other and pin that. And then match that as well. Okay, and then what you're going to want to do next is sew about a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way to from one point to the other, so all the way at the top. And then you're going to want to do the same 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom from one end to the other, so that you leave these two pockets open. And when you're done with that, I'll show you the next step. All right, so this is different material, but that's the step that we're at, where I've sewn the top, I've sewn the bottom, and now what you do is you flip it inside out so that you have the mask nearly done. And you will need to sort of shape it, and you can stick your finger in and run it along the seam, and the same at the top there. And then do the same at the bottom there. And then you'll want to fold this so that it makes a sort of straight seam, just so it'll help you for the next step. Like that, because that's how the place where the ear piece is going to go. And just want to kind of finagle it so that it sits properly. Now, if you have an iron, that makes this a little bit easier, but I know we have one, I just don't know where it is, but finger pressing works just as well. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to make the band to hold our elastic. Now I have a bunch of this on rolls. I probably have like 5 or 6 different colors. I will link this down below. This one I actually find to be easier on my ears because it is rounded. It is 2mm elastic cording, but you know, you can use whatever elastic cording that you have access to, but I do like to measure this at 12 inches just because the way that I fold it, it just makes it easier for me. Okay, so I've got 2 pieces at 12 inches. So what you're going to want to do is, and it takes a little bit of finagling, but you want these sides to be fairly straight. And then you want to fold it in about 1/4 inch. Kind of press that down. And then place one of your elastics over it. And then fold it one more time to sort of trap it inside, making that as neat as you can make it, and then pinning it or securing it down just so that it makes it easier to sew. And then you'll want to do the same on this side. Now once you have those turned over so that you know where you want to sew. I would sew down there. You don't want to sew this closed, you just want to sew it secure to this piece here and then sew down there, and then when you're done, I'll go ahead and show you the next to final step. All right, so now that I've used a whip stitch to sew that on, and you can sort of see the stitches, but as I mentioned in the last video that I made a mask, if someone is that close enough that they can see and or comment on your stitches, they are not practicing good social distancing rules, and you should tell them to back up 6 feet. So I tie this, and that's why I give myself that extra long piece, because the way that I tie it, it does waste a little bit, but I'm okay with that. And then I do the same here. Now, if you wanted to make this with hair ties, like fabric ties, then you would still do the folding method where you would fold it twice so that you have that very nice finished edge. But instead of securing the elastic inside of that, you would just attach a piece on all 4 corners of either ribbon or fabric straps or whatever, and I think 16 to 20 inches per strap would be sufficient to nicely tie this around the back of your head as well as the back of your neck. I did try using one of those with a different mask type and I didn't like it. I also don't need to wear my mask for very long. Usually it's either whatever essential shopping that I need to get done or to and from work on the occasion that I have to go into the office. So for me, this isn't on long enough for the ear thing to be a problem. But if you are in an industry where you are wearing this for a long time, then you may want to just do the fabric straps, fabric ties instead of the elastic, but that's entirely up to you. So this is nearly done, although we do want to make a moldable nose piece. So what I've been doing is I've been using a pipe cleaner. I fold it in half because pipe cleaners are not very strong just in the single. So folding in half seems to give it a little bit more stability. For the sides that are pointy, I'm actually going to twist that and then fold it back in on itself so that I have a nice rounded edge, as I don't want this to poke out and potentially poke me in the eye. And then I'm going to twist it together, and I find this gives it a little bit more sturdiness. So I'm going to take that piece like that. I will take a scrap piece of fabric. Now I like to either use the same fabric that is facing the public or just something that is not the same as the inside fabric, and that's just another indicator what the inside is versus the outside if you are looking at this. And if your fabrics are very similar, then you may want to take that extra step, because the way that we're going to secure this, it will be noticeable that there is a difference between the inside and out, especially if you are giving this to someone. And then I'd like to lay this down and cut so that there is a little bit of a border on the outside edge, and then cut this so that it's about 1 inch or 1.5 inches. Again, it's all by eyeball, I'm not measuring anything. And then I'll turn the right side down, and then I'm just going to roll this. So I'm going to roll it so I make sure I have sides on the edge. And if you've ever made a burrito or lumpia, you want to kind of do it in that style. So you want to fold one edge over and kind of press that down, and then fold, and then kind of press that down, and then fold again. Because we're just trying to encase that pipe cleaner in some fabric. And just to secure it, just put a pin in the middle. And press it down. Try not to take out your pin. And then you'll want to fold this over. I promise it's actually easier to roll lumpia. But fold this over and back on itself, and this is going to be the inside. And again, pin that down. And you want to do the same to the other side. Now it is fiddly, it is a bit unwieldy, but you can get the job done. And really we just want to make that ugly side on the inside. And so it doesn't matter what it looks like, at least not to me. And then what you're going to want to do is sew all of these down. It can be a very just loose running stitch. Basically, we just want this to be held together so that we don't have to worry about trying to hold it together and stitching it to the mask. So once you've stitched that, then I'll show you the very final step. Okay, so this is one I had done earlier, and again, it's nothing fancy, but it is fully enclosed, so we are keeping it safe. Fold it in half so that you have the middle section, and then you're going to want to match that up to the center of the top of your mask, and this is what's going to be the molded part across the bridge of your nose. And again, pin that down, and you want it so that it is fully hidden, and just more so just aesthetically. There's no other reason why. And pin that down, and again mold it and pin it down. And then you're going to want to sew all the way around this so that it attaches to your mask. And once you're done with that, you're done with your filter fitted mask. All right, if you are still here and you're interested in how to put together the mask that does not have a filter pocket but has the filter already attached to it, it is actually pretty much all of the same steps, but let me go through that real quickly with you because you'll see that it's very similar to what we've already done. So what you'll want to do is cut 2 pieces of one fabric and 2 pieces of another fabric with the full-size template as we have been doing. And then for my inside filter pocket, what I have been using is this right here, which is a allergy breathable pillow case that I picked up from Target that is just based on the feel of it, and I've already used this one. This outside is like a cotton, but this inside is sort of like a tightly wound satin feel, but it is, no, it's not 100%. It's nowhere near the N95 standard, but this is what I'm using as a filter versus having to insert a filter every single time. So you want 2 pieces of this, you want 2 pieces of your second fabric, because again, you want your inside and your outside to be distinguishable. And then for this filter piece, and again, this is what I'm using. I picked it up at Target. You could just do the same thing with just another piece of cotton. I just figured because this is breathable and yet it does give protection against dander and pollen and dust mites in the pillow, it might give just a little bit more support and protection against incoming or outcoming droplets, as they say, okay? So once you have all of that cut, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to have right sides facing each other for your pattern fabric, whatever that is. And then you'll want to sandwich those 2 protective pieces on either side of it so that when you open this up, this is your front facing mask and this is your already lined mask piece that's going to be sewn directly into it. And then your second piece, again, you would sew along the top edge there, and this will be the inside. And again, you just want two different patterns, and you would sew this together in the exact same way that I showed you guys with the other mask. And once you have that, then it's going to look like this, and you again would just turn this inside out. And really work the seams just to flesh this out. And then you would do the same with the sides. So you would press them down and then press them down again. And again, if you're doing with the elastic ear, then you would just put that in like I just showed you. And if you were doing the ties, then you would just tack this down, your running stitch or whatever stitch you're using, and then you would have a tie coming from each of the ends, and then you would add the bridge for the nose exactly the same way. Now again, as I've mentioned, this one is a single use for me, so I put it on, I don't touch my face, I don't touch the mask at all until I'm about to take it off. I put it into a Ziploc bag, and then if I need to go to and from another place, I will have multiples with me. And it just gives me not 100% security that I'm protected from the whole, virus and everything that's going around, but the filter is already in there, and I just like that it's nice and neat and compact, and I just will get into the habit of having multiple of these, and for my purpose it just makes it easier. But if you want to do the mask that has the filter, you can just keep switching the filter out. All right, guys, so that's the tutorial for the two different styles. Again, I've talked about why I prefer one method over the other, although both in a pinch will work. And in order to size up or size down, again, for my purposes, it fits me perfectly. It fits my brother, it fits my dad. It's actually a little bit big for my mom, and so I would consider this a large size. If you wanted to size up or down, you would make the original template, because that's based on the folds and everything that we did. And then I would say every size down you want to do, then just follow the pattern and go in about 1/2 inch, and you would follow all of the other steps that we've done, but just making a smaller template. And you can keep doing that depending on the size that you needed, but following all of the same steps. And then also, if you wanted to make this bigger, again, make this template, because it's the 1/2 of the page, and then you can get a bigger piece of paper and then just 1/2 inch wider than that, so that you can really customize this up or down, just to give you the shape of it, so that you can go with all of the steps that I've shown you. Definitely let me know down in the bottom what you think of this tutorial. This is the mask that I will be wearing and making for myself. Like I said, I've made about a dozen so far, all hands. Hi guys, so this is with the mask on. I'm sorry about the lighting, it keeps auto adjusting and I don't know how to adjust it, but as you can tell, I can breathe, I can talk through the mask. It is nicely fitted at the top of the nose, so even though it's cold in my room, it's not fogging up. It does tuck underneath my chin very nicely. It does go on the side very nicely there, and it does fit at my nose here. And I wear glasses, so it tends to slip anyway, but that's the fit of the mask. I hope you guys stay safe. I hope you guys stay well. And as always, aloha.